I'm Bill Say. Today I want to talk about using awareness to work with public speaking issues and anxieties. Now, as you may know, public speaking is supposed to be our number one fear, and there's a lot of good reasons why. Some of it is kind of invisible, happens behind the scenes, and some of it is for real. You get up and you start talking about your own ideas or points of view, and boom, you get attacked. Yeah, and so we often struggle with public speaking. We struggle with thinking clearly, with feeling comfortable enough, with dealing with sometimes challenging groups of people, etc. So using awareness practices in preparation for a public speaking situation can be really helpful, and we can also use awareness practices right in the heat of the moment when we're doing the talk. Yeah. So let me show a little bit how this can work. Let's say you have a talk that's coming up in a few days or a few weeks, and you notice you're just anxious. You're maybe doubting yourself, criticizing yourself, and you're just dreading the talk. Now this is it's a perfect situation to use awareness practice to see, can you work with the anxiety to bring it down a little bit, but can you also learn from it? Because what I found is that people, like public speakers, someone who's going to give a talk in any kind of a setting, we're like sponges. And oftentimes our own anxiety is not just our own anxiety. Yes, okay, I may be a nervous person, but sometimes there's things about the specific environment that starts to influence our minds, our bodies, and our anxiety. Yeah. So that's the first thing to know, is to entertain that possibility, because then the work with the anxiety is not just about reducing it. It's about learning from it and using the information that we may find in that process to inform how we speak and what we say. Yeah. So let's say you have this talk, it's coming up, and you notice that you're just afraid, you're anxious, and then you notice, I'm afraid I'm going to be criticized. Yeah, that's a really helpful first step. It's like to notice, yes, okay, there's anxiety, and then in the anxiety is a particular fear of being criticized. So then you might consider, what is this criticism? Yeah? And here's a funny thing that you could do. You could do it in your own home, your apartment. So here's the speaker, but then here's the critic. The critic may say, you don't know enough. Yeah, what do you know about our group? Yeah, let's just say that, all right? And then coming back to you, the speaker, you don't know, I don't know enough? I don't know your group? You can take that in here, say, well, there may be some truth to that I don't know enough about this subject, but I do know certain things, and I know A, B, and C. So this may be a moment where you simply get a little bit clear that, yeah, I'm not an absolute master expert about this topic, but I do know A, B, and C, and I really believe in A, B, and C, and so that's what I'm going to stand behind. And you might even say, yeah, these are my main points here. I recognize that I don't know everything about this topic, but I do know A, B, and C, and I believe in it, and I like to put it out there. Yeah. So that alone may be helpful, clarifying what you want to say. Yeah. But then there's another message in here that says, you don't know us. So coming back to here, you might say, it's true, I've never met you before. I've read a little bit about you on the internet, your group. I understand a little bit about what you're about, but I don't know. There's a lot that I don't know. And then you might consider that going into this group, not knowing the people, that's a sensitive thing. And I realized as a speaker, I wasn't really paying attention to that so much. Yes, I was noticing I was anxious, but I wasn't really considering this idea that I'm an outsider, I'm going into this group, and there might be some sensitivity, there's some sensitivity about an outside coming in and not really knowing them. And when I connect with that, it makes me feel like a little bit more humble. And that could be helpful. Yeah? Let's say you have another situation. And I've done this a number of times. It's not everyone's cup of tea, but I'll show you two variations. Let's say you're actually in the setting. You're in front of a group of people, you're going to give a talk, you're going to do a presentation, you're part of a public forum, etc. But you notice that you're about to speak and your mind goes completely blank, for example. Or you're so anxious that you feel like you're incapable. Yeah? So here's one variation. This is the one that I often do. Is I just say, listen folks, I know I'm supposed to talk about the subject, but I'm so anxious that I'd just like to take a minute and work on myself, just using moment-to-moment awareness of what I'm aware of, just to kind of ease myself. And I have to say that when I've asked for permission to take a minute before talking, I've never had a group say no. So I'll just say that. Most people, they go, what? What is he? He's going to work on himself? He's anxious and he's going to work on himself? Sure, I'm curious to see what he does. And so they'll say, thanks. Thanks for letting me do that. I'm just really anxious. And if I take a minute, I notice that, I notice this part that says, you don't know anything. And I say, yeah, there's this part that says, Bill, say you don't know anything about this topic and you should just go home. And at this point, usually people are laughing a little bit, but then I come back here and I say, well, it's actually not exactly true that I don't know anything about this topic because I actually do know some things. And then even saying that little bit, I notice I get a little bit more comfortable. There's a little bit of laughter going on. I notice people looking at me because who works on themselves in public like this? Almost no one. And people are interested in it. Plus, a lot of times people can relate to the experience of someone who's going to speak and is nervous about it. That's helpful. But then here's the other important aspect about working on oneself in public is sometimes you actually start to speak to something that's an important idea, feeling, or perspective that's in the audience. Yeah? Let's say there's something that's really strong about an outsider coming in to speak to the group. Let's say there's resistance or strong feelings about that. And in one's work in front of the group, in that work, let's say I address it, sometimes that can relax that perspective because that perspective has been voiced. Here's an example. It's like, yeah, there's a part that says, who are you? You don't know anything. You're coming from the outside. I don't even know if we should listen to you. Yeah? And as the public speaker voicing that part, it can just be really relieving for people. It's like, wow, he understands that. I feel like now I don't have to hold that resistance to him as much because he's aware that he's coming in as an outsider. Now I feel a little bit more open to this guy. Now here's the thing. I know that probably most of you would not choose to work on yourself in front of a group. Yeah? Yeah, I'll just face it. And for the few of you that would, I'll just say that I've done this many times in front of groups, not just because I'm nervous, but because it often creates more connection with the group. I feel more grounded, and I start to, in some way, express some of the sentiments that exist in the room. Yeah? And so I think there's a very functional reason to do so. Yeah? Now, I know that most of you probably would choose not to do such a thing in front of a group. But you can do something similar inside yourself without showing any of it to the audience members. You can do the work inside of yourself, especially if you have a little bit of time. Let's say you're going to be speaking in a group setting at a conference, in a community meeting, and you know that you're going to be speaking in 5 or 10 minutes and you're just nervous. Well, you can do something similar. You can say, wow, I'm really nervous here. And you can do it in your own mind. What am I nervous about? I'm nervous that I'm going to say something and I'm going to get attacked. Well, get it. That's a great step. It's like identifying that, and then you can think, what am I? How might I be attacked? And then get a little bit into the attacker inside your own mind. The attacker might say, your ideas are really, they're just not very good. They're too soft. They're not scientific enough. And you go, yeah, they're not scientific. But that's really not my orientation. I'm not a scientist. This is really more where I'm coming from. And just doing that little bit of inner work, you might find by addressing the inner critic, the inner doubter, you can resolve something and maybe feel a little bit less anxious and a little bit more able to communicate in a way that can be received well. So a couple tips on using awareness in public speaking situations, and just want to wish you good luck with it. And feel free to email me or in the comments section, or write in any questions you have about your upcoming speaking situations, and I'll see if I can answer them. Thanks. Bye-bye.